Okay, Jeff again for the Learning Dutch series and Learning Dutch in 1 week series. Uh, the one thing I want to focus right now here, it's going to be a shorter video, is using business cards to learn numbers and letters. And I used this technique 30 years ago, 1992. We're 2023 right now, when I taught French at the Graduate Business School of Lyon, France. And I remember going to the teachers. They called me in to kind of the director of the program called me in to be a guest, invited guest to teach the French to Americans that were coming for survival French for one month, 1 week, to stay 1 month. And I remember talking with these French teachers of French, and they when we were discussing what they wanted to do for the week, and it was just way too complicated. They want to teach, they want to cram like 3 years of French into 1 week for the students. I said, you're going to kill the students. Let's simplify this. And I said, the first thing that we need to work on is teaching them how to do numbers and letters. And they have to do this every day, and we have to do it consistently, and we have to get them to be able to say it because they're going to be making reservations. This was back 30 years ago when you had made reservations by phone, right? You didn't have mobile phones back then. And it was very necessary because they have to call up, make reservations, book rooms, book hotels, make reservations for trains. There wasn't internet back then, right? So we didn't have all this online stuff. And so it was very necessary to do this. And it's still good today. It's still very valuable today. It's just we can do things online, but now you have to write. Whereas back then you had to speak it, right? You didn't have a choice. The but the key thing for this is that whenever you want to do things, you need to have. I did have the experience. I do remember when my sister called one time during that year or the year before, the place I was living at, and the people that I lived with, they could. I was actually teaching them English back then, and they could speak English okay, but they couldn't write the name of her name and her phone number down. They didn't understand that. And that taught me some things that you always have to work on the letters and the numbers first, right? Because to write down my sister's name and to write down her phone number is the key for me to call back. If I don't have the phone number, I can't call back. And that was the problem, right? So that ended up with a problem. So, and I do remember when I taught at that graduate business school of Lyon, all the teachers said, no, we're not going to do this. The director says, yes, we're going to do this because it sounds great. We did it. And every single morning we started the numbers and letters, right? To do it. And yes, it's repetitive, but it beats it in, right? You got to get this in. These are key things. And the second day we did this we started doing with the French un, deux, trois, right? And we're getting them to learn the numbers and stuff to recognize them. And we're using business cards. I'm going to get that in a second here. Um, and one of the guys says, "Oh yeah, Jeff, you're so right about this thing because yesterday, Paul and I went down to the local bar and we ordered douze bière instead of deux bières. Now, douze and deux, they're pretty close, right? But douze is 12 and deux is two. So they end up with 12 beers, 6 beers is split. Each of them is drinking 6 beers, and they open them all. He said the problem, they open them all up, so we had to drink them all. He says, and we can't do this every day. We need to say this. We need to say they were number two very correctly, right? So this taught me that it really was efficient, and I think this is key. So what I do, and I did back then, I still did it, and I did it with myself in a certain way, was to put the students back to back as if they're in phone booths. They got to make a phone call, right? And so they need to dictate the business cards. I brought a bunch of business cards and dictate the people's names, everything on the business card, dictate it out, and the other person has to write it down, and then back and forth, right? So that you practice it, and you have to hear it, right? You do both, so you have to write it down. I mean, you get a lot of different things happening in the parallel of language learning. So I actually applied the same approach. I had a stack of business cards in my car with me from my travels and all this stuff. I meet a lot of people, so I have a lot of business cards. Yes, the business cards still do exist today in 2023. They do exist. Um, and so I pull them out, and we use those for several days. The first thing we did every single day, the first lesson of every day, was to work on the pronunciation of everything on several business cards. And that just the letters, and then we built those into words. We got to a point, but I had to explain to her that we need to separate. I need to say everything out letter by letter of everything I'm reading, right? That's what we do with children in the beginning. When children learn, they got to learn to spell. Then they get to be able to form. They get to say words when they're learning to read, right? When they're learning to read, this same approach. I'm doing the exact same thing we do with kids. when they're learning to read and write, or learning to read at the beginning, then they write afterwards, right? So I did the exact same thing. And so that was a really important step, and it was really effective. And I got to learn the numbers and the letters really quickly. And number letters, you get them in license plates. I already mentioned the license plate thing, but it's very effective because you can see license plates everywhere you are. There are cars everywhere, right? So every time you're walking somewhere, you can passively just walk along and work on your numbers and letters. I used to do this actually when I was learning French back in the United States when I was driving. Yeah, I just look over it for a half a second, memorize the license plate, or just say that quickly, right? Or the one in front of me, or the right next to me, right in front of me, next to me, right? Kind of right. So it's just you get these things really quickly, right? And you have to say them really fast. You get really fast at saying these, and that's what's important is to be able to say them fast and understand them quick, fast as well. So that's kind of an important thing with the business cards. Very effective approach, easy to do. Business cards easy to get, and you can just or whatever. I could do all the walls. We could open. I could read the words on the walls, but spelling them out, right? Okay, then I get to learn how to say the word afterwards, right? Pronounce the whole word, but spelling out was a really important thing forever and whatever thing. So that's the business card approach.